Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Showing Up to Your Live podcast and YouTube channel. My name is Art Burns, and I'm super excited to be here with you today. It's a Sunday for me. Well, it's a Sunday for everyone, but it's Friday for me, I guess, because I'm off for the next 2 days. But wherever you are, whatever you're doing right now as you're watching this, I don't know what day it is while you're watching this or listening, but I hope that you're finding yourself in a place where you're able to, really attend to the present moment, and you're doing that with a level of open curiosity as to what might arise in this present moment, but most importantly that you're doing it with some compassion for yourself and for everyone else around you. All right, because this is the key. And if you if you've listened to any of these podcasts before, you know that I believe this to be the key. And I believe it to be the key because I've seen it work in so many different circumstances with myself and with so many other people at this point, that when we can again ground ourselves into the present moment, and let go of some of the busyness and the monkey minded, oh, what's next, what do I have to do, what's coming up, what am I afraid of, what's going to go wrong. And when we can free ourselves from all of that and ground ourselves into the present moment, right, that's where we can be present, right? We can really show up to our lives, right? And again, it requires, as we bring ourselves into the present moment, it's not just that, right? It's also bringing ourselves into the present moment with this open curiosity, with an acceptance, an attitude of acceptance as for whatever is going to arise in this present moment, right? And it's acceptance for right now. Right? It's not to say, oh, well, this is just how life is, I guess I just got to put up with it. That's not it at all. In fact, the acceptance that I talk about is just acknowledging that this is the way things are right now. And from here, we have infinite possibilities and potentials to change things. But we can only change things if we are paying attention to what things are right now. Otherwise, it's like trying to grab onto water, like you just can't do it. Right. And again, ultimately, and or very importantly also, right, we got to have some compassion for what we're experiencing, right? It's not an option, right? Like you can't, it's not an optional feature to this whole thing, right? It's all in there. And that's what we talk about here on this podcast. Okay. And before we get into today's topic, I have a bit of an announcement. I have actually a very important announcement to make. So please hear me out. Okay. Listen up. We are at today, I believe, is 564 episodes. And this is, I did probably about 60 episodes or something before I even started counting them. Okay. So we are well over 600 episodes here. And I'm going to take a little pause. Okay, only for a few days. Probably be right back on track next Wednesday. Not this coming Wednesday, but the following Wednesday. But I want to give myself a little time so that I can serve you better. Okay, it's not to rest. I feel very well rested. That's not the point, right? It's not that I need a break from this. As I tell you every single day, I love doing these podcasts. It brings me such joy and such fulfillment to do these with you, right? And again, it's both of us are benefiting from this, right? Like I'm benefiting as much, if not more, than you are, right? But that's kind of the point, right? That I want to make sure that I'm generating content that really matters to you, right? Now, I've asked before, and I'm going to ask again. In the next couple of days, if you feel like you're open to it and you move to do so, I'm asking you to send me an email of what kind of stuff you would like me to. You know what? Maybe what I'll do is I'll do a Google poll and I'll email that out to everybody tomorrow. But if you feel like it, you can certainly send me an email and tell me like what kind of content would you like me to produce, or keep doing the same thing, or maybe it's a little more focused one way or the other. I would love to know what you all want to do, but at this point in my own journey and my own work and stuff, I feel the need to take a pause and to really define what it is that I'm doing. Maybe redefine is the more or refocus maybe is that's the feeling that I have. I feel like I'm not focused. I feel like I'm just kind of, I got the black book, and as I said, the last couple of weeks I haven't even been following the black book, and I think that's partially what's kind of coming up for me right now. It's fine, I guess. I mean, I'm cool with just flying by the seat of our pants here, but at the same time, I feel like maybe there is something I could, be more focused on, and sure, I want to help more people, but I want to help the right people, right? I want to help people I can help, right? And my whole, as I've talked a lot recently about, my own trauma, and the more I'm understanding about my own trauma and the trauma that I know that a lot of other people are going through, the more I feel called toward that, right? I feel called towards the idea of really working on that kind of trauma stuff, right? But a specific kind of type of trauma, if you will, right? So, and this is not what we're talking about today, but just real quick, there is the notion of PTSD, right, which is associated mostly with a singular event, even if it's multiple singular events, right? But something like people would see a horrible car accident where many people died and they watched people die, right? That's a traumatic experience, right? And that is likely to cause PTSD, right? Now, PTSD coming out of something like that, it looks like, having nightmares and seeing it over and over and over again and not being able to get those images out of your mind. And it's going to cause a lot of stress in your body, right? So that's PTSD, right? And that's associated, again, mostly with survivors of accidents, very much associated with veterans returning from war, the horrible things that people see in war, that creates PTSD, right? But now there's another thing that's not officially in the DSM, which is the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual, that psychiatrists and therapists use to diagnose pathologies or morbidities, right? It's not in that yet, but it's in another kind of reference book that's similar. It's coming out in that one, and we're hoping that it gets put into the DSM too, because it's legitimate, right? But it's just not recognized yet, right? And what I'm talking about here is something called CPTSD. Okay, stands for chronic post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay. And this kind of PTSD is very, very different from the kind of PTSD that you would have with a car accident that was so horrible, or someone returning from war, right? Where those are singular events, right? Again, even for a soldier, it might be 2 years worth of singular events, right? But they are singular events. CPTSD stands for chronic post-traumatic stress disorder, which indicates that there is a prolonged series of trauma, right? And usually not as dramatic or impactful as a singular explosive event, right? But rather like a slow kind of just a constant of trauma, right? And what this looks like is child abuse, right? And child abuse can come in many different forms and levels and intensities and everything like that. It could also look at like a toxic relationship, right? Like being in a relationship with a narcissist, for instance, right? Could, over the course of a couple of years, then you could experience chronic post-traumatic stress disorder from your experience with this narcissist, right? Or whatever it is, right? Maybe you're in a relationship with somebody who is experiencing CPTSD, and that is going to cause a CPTSD for you, right? But most commonly, what we talk about is childhood experiences, right? So things like childhood abuse, and again, childhood abuse becomes, goes in many different forms, right? There's sexual abuse, there's emotional abuse, there's physical abuse, there's, all kinds of ways in which children can experience this, right? And sometimes it's not even abuse, it's neglect. right? Like alcoholic parents, right, are very neglectful. They're very, not kind of taking care of their children, right? They the lights get turned off, the power gets turned off to the house, right? They run out of food. There maybe is food scarcity, right? Even being in poverty can be CPTSD, right? The constant worry about, losing your home or not having enough to eat, right? That can cause CPTSD, right? But again, in many cases, what we're talking about is things that happen to us as children, right? And that certainly is the case for me. And so that is the direction that I'm kind of feeling called towards. Now, if you're out there and you say, no, 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 Art, I don't want to hear about that. I want to hear about this other thing. That's what I want to hear from you, okay? Because it doesn't have to be a zero-sum thing, right? It doesn't mean that I'll only do this kind of content. But I want to do this kind of content because, you know what? I am a survivor of CPTSD, and I know how difficult surviving CPTSD can be. I know how it impacts your relationships. I know how it impacts your ability to hold down jobs, to finish projects, to just manage your life. I know how hard it becomes through the prism of this CPTSD, right? And I also know that while I'm not a therapist and I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and I'm not going to necessarily be the person to help you heal that PTSD, the CPTSD that you live with, right? What I can do is I can teach you coping mechanisms, right? So that you can live your life here and now free from the impacts of that CPTSD. And then if you want to work with a therapist or a psychiatrist and really delve into the depths of what's going on, well, then that's open for you once you're in a place of regulation, right? And the way to regulate, I also know, right? I know that it's profoundly important to practice mindfulness, being in the here and now, and also compassion, specifically self-compassion, right? Like that's what we suffer from, those of us who suffer from CPTSD, right? We can't be in the present moment, right? Because we're always kind of, again, whatever that CPTSD, whatever that experience was for you as a child, right? So for me, it was just always feeling like I wasn't good enough. I was always being told by my parents that I was stupid and I was dumb and I was, just doing things wrong. And I was just they were constantly ashamed of me. Right. So that's my struggle. Right. So now in my here and now, I have this, like I'm not good enough. Everybody hates me. Like I need to get approval. I need to know that these people like me. Otherwise, I'm sure that they don't like me. Right. And so a lot of that thought is like thinking about what's going to happen next, what's next. But what I need to do is just be here and ground myself into the present moment. And of course, with self-compassion, right? That I am good enough, that I am worthy, that I do deserve the approval of everybody, but I don't need the approval of everybody, right? Because I'm me and it's okay, right? So anyway, that's kind of the direction I'm heading in, right? And so for this last episode for the next few days, and again, I don't see it going more than a week. So trust me, you're not going to miss me that much, okay? And this is a perfect opportunity for you to go back. If you're anything like me, you're the kind of person who either started from the very beginning, right? and so you're a few weeks behind, right? So you're listening to this podcast a month from now, in which case there will be no break. Because it'll just be an empty slot and you'll just skip the week, right? But or you're the kind of person who jumped in at, when you discovered the podcast 2 months ago, you jumped right in at the present podcast. And so there's 500 and something that you haven't listened to, right? So now's the chance to get caught up with everything. Okay. And so today I'm going to leave you with this, with a topic today, a theme of this episode is about, about the CPTSD, right? And one of the things that I've come to understand, well, first of all, one of the most common things that people, feel like who experience CPTSD, right? One of the most common things it seems that people feel is that I can't meditate, right? It's just not, I can't do it. Like I cannot, my mind just won't slow down. I just can't do it, right? And while that's that's what people, right, that's what people are feeling, there's no question about that, I'm not doubting that, right? But what's the real reason that you feel you can't meditate? And I think part of that is that it becomes scary, right? Like people who are dealing with trauma, right? On whether it's a specific singular kind of trauma, or it's more so with the chronic, something that comes from a childhood abuse or neglect or a situation that just wasn't safe, right? You know, when people who like us have lived with this kind of thing, right? Closing our eyes and being alone with our thoughts can sometimes be a very terrifying thing, right? And I guess I'm just lucky that I learned how to meditate before I learned about CPTSD, or else maybe I wouldn't be able to do it, because I just figured everybody was having those kind of thoughts, but they're not, right? That's something specific to us. Right. And so anyway, so the idea then is that, when I teach people these, practices and I coach people through, ways to reduce their stress and to live, in the here and now, right? Yes, meditation is a big part of it. But again, when people tell me like I just can't do the meditation, I have a newfound, sort of respect for that, right? Like, and when I say respect, it's not like, oh man, I respect you so much for not being able to meditate. No, I mean, I'm respecting the fact that you cannot meditate. Like, it's okay, right? And so when you're in that kind of thing, right? When you're in that sort of, that mode, if you will, or that sort of, when you have that sort of status of just, no, if I close my eyes, all the thoughts come up and it's scary and I don't like it, well, then for you, all of you, I'm going to suggest some what we call off the cushion practices, right? And because there's this sort of, within this world of mindfulness work, there's kind of this myth that, it's, if you don't meditate, it ain't gonna work, kind of thing, But I'm reminded now of there's a wonderful teacher named Mingyur Yonggi Rinpoche. Okay, now Mingyur Yonggi is his name. Rinpoche is like a title, right, of a monk, right? And so Mingyur, we'll just call him Ming for now, if you will, just to make it easy. Fantastic, like so many different, like, wonderful videos he's got out there. He's written a couple of books that are just amazing. And so anyway, I was reading one of his books. I've read it several times because it's just awesome. He's one of these monks who is also, very interested in science. So he bridges that gap between spirituality and science, which that's where I live, that's where I dwell. And so this book that he's written, it's called I think it's called The Science of Happiness. Anyway, yeah, I believe it's called The Science of Happiness. I'd have to find, or The Science of Joy, I think it's what it is. Anyway, I'll put it in the description. And one of the things, though, that he said in this book is that, when people, modern people feel, people who live today, feel that again, that meditation is just absolutely integral to, and essential to be able to, understand mindfulness and to live in mindfulness and to kind of, cultivate that attitude and that sense of being, grounded in the present moment, right? That we feel that if we don't meditate, then we can't achieve that, right? But Ming reminds us that, or tells us that when the Buddha was traveling around the countryside between India and China, and just, teaching people what he was teaching them, right? He was talking to people who were peasants and farmers and laborers. These were not people who had, sure, 4 or 5 hours every day I can sit around and meditate. No, 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 no. These people had goats to milk and cows to milk and the whole thing, babies to raise and fields to plow. And, they were very, very busy people. They didn't have a whole lot of time. And so the Buddha actually taught mostly the informal practice first, according to Mingyur. Again, I'm not coming up with this. This is what Mingyur Yonggi Rinpoche talks about. And his father was a venerable monk before him, so like it's a family tradition. His father actually was such, at one point, I mean, he's obviously, very practiced in his work and stuff, he's a monk, right? But at one point he had to have an operation done, surgery, right? And for whatever reason, they forgot to give him the anesthesia, right? And the only reason the doctor realized that he had not gotten the anesthesia was that as he was cutting him, he noticed the muscles twitching that signified that, well, you're feeling this. But he never, he wasn't going to say anything because he was feeling compassion towards the anesthesiologist. And he was totally good with just doing the surgery. I think they wound up putting him under anyway. Like the doctor was like, no, I won't do this. But he was like good with it, right? Like that's the level of power that you can get from this work, right? I mean, that's intense, right? I mean, obviously, I don't think any of us are going to get to that point. But that's, if you do 50,000 hours of meditation in your life, that's where you get to, right? But again, the son of that person is telling us that you don't have to just do meditation, right? And sometimes, maybe also we can look at different types of formal meditation, right? Like it doesn't have to just be, sometimes maybe a mantra is better for somebody who's experiencing, CPTSD or PTSD, right? So sometimes repeating something over and over and over, right? Or sometimes, meditating on a candle right there, right? Meditating on a sound, right? These are ways that we could work with you to get you into meditation. But even outside of all that, though, we can just practice mindfulness, as we call it, off the cushion. And I would recommend you do, right? I would recommend that for all of us who are, experiencing this, whether it's CPTSD or PTSD, if it's hard for you to sit in silence alone with your thoughts, well, then don't do that, okay? But instead, we can bring mindfulness to all the other areas of your life, right? We can brush our teeth mindfully. We can take a shower mindfully. We can drive mindfully. We can get dressed mindfully. We can walk from one point to another mindfully. We can make coffee or tea mindfully. We can eat mindfully. We can shop for our clothes and our groceries mindfully. All these different things we can do with mindfulness. And it's very simple. It's just paying attention to what you're doing. And I can certainly teach you how to do that, right? It's not something I can just say, oh, in one sentence, you're good. It requires training and it requires teaching, but it is possible. So if anybody out there is thinking like, oh man, I would love to get this beautiful relief that Art talks about, but I just can't meditate, well then don't let that stop you, okay? Still get in touch with me. And still let's talk, and still think about coming to my new group coaching program, which is starting this Thursday. I've already had a couple of people reach out. I'm really excited. You know who you are. Thank you. Going to get back to you actually probably very soon today. And we're talking about Thursday, right? So probably around 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time, right? So it's there for you. And I can teach you in that group coaching course, I can teach you how to do informal meditation. I can teach you specifically in your life how to do it, right? Like not just, not something you find in a book, right? That says, oh, just wash the dishes mindfully. It's like, well, no, I have 3 kids and the dishes are a horrendous situation for me. I don't want to use the dishes. Okay, great. Do you take your dog for a walk every day? Do you drink coffee every day? Do you tell me about your life? Let's find I'll find a couple of places that will get mindfulness in there. I promise you. And then, of course, another big part of dealing with this CPTSD, specifically CPTSD, but also regular trauma as well, singular traumatic experiences, but specifically for CPTSD, right, where it was a prolonged, experience of trauma, self-compassion is everything. Right? Because remember, especially with CPTSD, most of it is happening when we're children. A lot of people will replace, instead of chronic PTSD, they say childhood PTSD. Like, that's how real it is, right? And when we're children, that's when we're developing our sense of self and our sense of self-worth. Right? And that's going on while we're growing, right? And so if during that time of growth and development, you're being told and shown every day how not worthy you are, how little self-worth you really have, how unloved you really are, well, then that's how you're going to develop a feeling for yourself. Okay. And so that's why self-compassion is absolutely vital for all of us. And I will tell you that compassion for everyone, and also compassion for me, has been probably the singular most important practice that I've done for myself. And again, self-compassion and compassion don't require necessarily the traditional kind of meditation. Yes, we can do it intentionally and formally, and we do, but we also do it informally. But it's not just sitting there and quieting the mind, right, as they say, right? It's not that, right? Because that is the thing that's really hard. But if I give you a mental, sort of exercise that is a self-compassion practice, right, that's going to be much more impactful for you. So show up on Thursday, all right? Email me for a link, and I will send you the link to the Zoom call. It is offered by donation. I'm hoping to get maybe $15 a person, but it's flexible. It's, even if you can donate $0, you're still welcome to be there, okay? But I am asking for donations. So that's it, folks. Okay, so here we are. This is a really exciting time, a really strange time. I have literally not taken. There's been like maybe over the course of 564 episodes. I believe today is 564. There's probably been maybe 5 days that I have not produced a content for this thing. Not 5 in a row, 5 individual days where I was sick or I just, traveling or whatever, and yeah, so, okay, so that's been a long run. And so, yes, I am very much I'm excited and I'm really nervous about not doing it for a week, but I'm going to take this time to really reflect on what it is I'm doing and really kind of come up with maybe a more structured way of doing the themes and the maybe there's more of a question and answer kind of thing. Maybe that's something that comes out of this. But I'm going to allow my creativity to sort of, percolate here for a little bit, okay, for the next, 4 or 5 days, 7 days tops. But I promise I'll be back next Wednesday, okay? So what is that? That's Wednesday. I don't have a calendar in front of me. I can look it up here on my phone. All right. Pardon me, everybody. So that would be Wednesday the 11th. Okay. So I will be back 8/11 without a question. Okay. I promise you that. All right. But in the meantime, please let me know. What do you want to hear? What do you want to see? What do you want me to do for you? Because it's important that I know. Because if I know, then I can do that. All right. And again, send me an email if you want the link for Thursday night. Okay, this is going to be great. I've already got like about 3 or 4 people in there, so we technically already have a group, and I'm really, really excited because it's going to be amazing. It really is. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Thank you, all of you, for your continued support. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for your love. I love you back, and I really, really... I just, and please know that I'm going to be thinking about you all week. Okay. This is not something I need a break from this. I'm taking a necessary break, but it's going to kill me to do it. It's going to hurt a little bit. Right. 'Cause love hurts. That's what love is, All right. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I wish you well, and I'll be back again in about 10 days, 9 days. All right. So take care, and please email me any questions, any suggestions, and certainly email me if you want a link for Thursday evenings group coaching with Art. Okay, it's going to be at 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time, which is 8:30 for you folks on the West Coast. 5:30. I'm sorry, 8:30 for you folks on the East Coast. 5:30 for you folks on the West Coast, and 7:30 for you people in the Heartland. All right, everybody, have a great day. I wish you well. Take care.